Hello, good morning. This is today's tarot card, but we are on the chapter. Welcome, everyone, by the way. Constance and I are going out this morning. We're putting on our masks and our gloves, and we're venturing out to the store, actually to Trader Joe's in the health food store, to get some fresh vegetables and things. I hope you are all doing well and staying inside and safe. So we are on the second installment of chapter 24, The Curse of Belial, Never Share a Fiend with a Friend. If you didn't see part one, or if you didn't see any of these earlier ones, you can scroll down in my Facebook page, and I think you can play most all of them so far. Anyway, I'm picking it up right now. In 1981, Matt Benton, an old musician friend of mine who had recently earned his PhD in psychology, offered me a job editing a series of books he had written in conjunction with a therapeutic board game that he developed in grad school. It was without a doubt the best job I had ever had. The pay was good, and the work very interesting. It even included a car. A little less than a month after I started the job, the project was hit with some unforeseen and expensive surprises. A sizable chunk of investment capital had been withdrawn, and unless new cash could be injected into the enterprise, the project and my job would have to be postponed. The only way Matt could quickly raise the needed cash was to secure another loan on his already heavily encumbered home. In desperation, he took counsel with an attorney of colorful integrity. And together they filed loan paperwork that could only be described as surreal. Knowing that I would prefer to keep working, Matt asked if there was anything magical I could do to assure that the loan committee would somehow approve the package without reading it. I figured it was my unambiguous will to keep working. So I foolishly suggested that we enter into a joint evocation of a Goetic spirit. Matt loved the idea, and we thumbed through the text together and settled on Belial, the 68th spirit of the Goetia, a spirit I had heretofore not evoked. The text for Belial reads like this. Belial, he is a mighty and powerful king, and was created next after Lucifer. He appeareth in the form of two beautiful angels sitting in a chariot of fire. He speaketh with a comely voice, and declareth that he fell first from among the worthier sort that were before Michael and the other heavenly angels. His office is to distribute presentations and senatorships, etc., and to cause favor of friends and foes. He giveth excellent familiars and governeth 80 legions of spirits. Note well that this king Belial must have offerings, sacrifices, and gifts presented unto him by the exorcist, or else he will not give true answers unto his demands. But then he tarrieth not 1 hour in truth, unless he be constrained by divine power. Because Belial appears as two spirits, I thought it particularly appropriate for an operation involving two magicians. I had never performed a dual evocation before, so I was unsure as to the best way to proceed. There's a footnote. I didn't realize at the time this was the stupidest idea in the world. I decided Matt and I should operate simultaneously from 2 different locations, our respective homes. I set to work making 2 poster board triangles and 2 paper versions of Belial's sigil. I also engraved the demon sigil on 2 copper discs. On the back of each disc, I engraved a classic tetragrammaton pentagram. These we would wear around our necks during the evocations. I wrote up 2 outline rituals. Mine would be more elaborate version, similar to the one I used for the evocation of Orobos. Matt's version was very simple and designed primarily to link his temple with mine. Matt lived less than 2 miles from my home, so it was very easy for me to go to his house and help him set up his circle and triangle and assure myself that he and his temple were in order. Matt had never done anything like this before and was understandably a bit nervous. We cast his circle around a giant easy chair in his living room, so he could sit comfortably during the 10 or 15 minutes I estimated it would take for the evocation. Before I left Matt's house, I banished the room and consecrated his circle. We briefly reviewed what he was to do in the joint ceremony. It was very simple. After I left, he was to take a shower while he repeated the appropriate verse. That's the cleanse me with hyssop kind of thing. He was then to put on his bathrobe. He didn't have a magical robe, and enter his living room. He was to place his paper sigil, which was drawn on the back of a letter signed by one of the bank officers, in the triangle, and his copper sigil around his neck. Then, for the duration of the specified time, he was to remain in the chair within the circle and repeat a short mantra. And this mantra is hopelessly corny, I know. I'm embarrassed even to write about it, but at the time, Matt and I thought it was incredibly heavy. Here it is. Matt was supposed to chant this while he sat in the chair. Belial, thou mighty king, accept thou now this offering. Send forth your legions to secure the loan committee's signature. Matt was then to wait in the circle until I returned to banish and close his temple. We synchronized our watches and rushed home to begin the conjuration at the designated moment. As Belial demands offerings and sacrifices, I decided with uncharacteristic machismo that I would initiate the proceedings by scratching the sigil of the demon on my left arm with a compass point and then stamping the mark with my blood onto a round piece of parchment. This I placed in the triangle to serve as the material basis for the spirit's manifestation. My conjuration was accompanied by no strange occurrences whatsoever. Although I didn't actually see the spirit in the triangle, my inner senses all informed me loud and clear that Belial greedily accepted my sacrifice of blood, and that the object of our operation would succeed. After giving the spirit his charge, I banished the temple and rushed back to Matt's house. I found Matt in his black bathrobe sitting in his big easy chair. He seemed a little shaken. I performed the banishing rituals of the pentagram and hexagram, then asked him how it went. He said, "Well, I'm not sure, but I think I'd like to take another shower. Don't sit in that chair." Matt disappeared into the bathroom and took a quick shower. He returned with a towel and a bottle of pine-scented disinfectant. Without saying a word, he proceeded thoroughly to clean his chair. This is very strange. I didn't know if I wanted to know what was going on. Let's get something to eat, he finally said, my treat. Over dinner, he told me the most remarkable story. In my first draft of this chapter, I wrote down as much as I could remember concerning his story. I read it to Matt to see if there's anything else he could add. He said it was fine, but he got out his journal of that period just to double check. It was the first time I had ever seen his diary. After reading it, I asked if he would allow me to reproduce his diary notes instead of using what I had written. He graciously consented, so please excuse his abbreviations and shorthand use of language. Compared to some of my diary entries, Matt's notes read like Shakespeare, but I'm just going to sort of show you kind of what that looks like. A lot of abbreviations and misspellings and things like that. I'll try to read it to you. 7:23, 6:30 to 8:15 p.m. Black magic ceremony. Demon Belial with Milo to bewitch for bank loan. Did simultaneous Milo at his house, me at mine. My part did not go as planned, but I think it worked. Very strange, see below. Milo strung clothesline circle around my lazy boy. Inside a cardboard triangle, we put a letter signed by, and then the name of the bank person. On the back, M drew magic symbol of Belial, and then he hand drew the sigil himself. M also scratched the same sign on 2 copper circles for us to wear around our necks. M vanished my house. He meant banished. M vanished my house before he went home to do his thing. All I was to do was shower and feel holy, and at 6:30 sit in my chair and repeat a poem Milo made up. Belial, thou mighty king, accept thou now this offering. Send forth your legions to secure the loan committee's signature. I to stay in chair till he returns back to vanish. My house again. Around 6:30, showered and tried to read another poem M wrote for me to say. Got it wet, couldn't read it. Put on my bathrobe and tried to put medallion around my neck. The chain got snagged on robe and broke. 6:25, sat down in my chair and tried to relax. Too hot for bathrobe. This was in summer. This is in July. Too hot for bathrobe. Took off. Put medallion on chair between my legs. Sunlight coming in from partly open front door, uncomfortably bright in my eyes. Closed eyes and tried to remember the poem. Hard to say what happened next, because so unlike anything that he meant ever, and then trails off. Then he picks up, I fell asleep. Sitting up in the chair with the sun in my face. In dream, I saw myself reclined in chair with Kay, that was his lady friend at the time, with Kay naked astride me like Tuesday night. It was so unlike her to make love in the daylight. Great sex, and started to climax. But in back of my mind, I knew I was supposed to be doing something else. Note, first wet dreams since starting my journals nearly 6 years. I tried to wake up, but I was laughing at the craziness of the whole thing. but I didn't know if I was laughing in dream state or awake. The climax brought me fully conscious, confused, embarrassed, chair wet with issue, medallion covered. I'm not sure what M had in mind for my part of the ceremony. Clock read 6:45. Milo due back soon to vanish. to vanish. I put on my robe and cleaned up the chair as much can and waited inside the circle for him to return. I wasn't sure I was going to, but I told M pretty much everything that happened. He thought I was joking at first and said that nothing like that had ever happened to him. Told me, sounds like I got the good half of the demon. And that's the end of his notes there. I was a bit uncomfortable with the sexual component of Matt's experience, especially because it was not part of the original operation. It seemed uncomfortably like an act of spiritual vampirism. Still, I did not share my concerns with Matt because I did not want to throw a wet blanket on his enthusiasm over his first magical operation. Furthermore, 3 days later, we learned that the loan committee had approved the loan and offered an additional 15% if Matt so requested. He so requested. The project was on again. And that's where we'll stop today. You probably will guess this is not the end of the story, but we'll pick it up here tomorrow. Thank you guys very much for being part of this little project of mine. We're almost through with the book. Thanks for being with me every day. And be good to yourself and be good to each other and do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will. Have a safe